LeBron is looking old and rusty and might be needing to retire soon. Zion's career might be in jeopardy again due to injuries. James Harden says OKC would have won at least 2 titles if they were never broken up. And we have a new All-Star game format, plus more. Now, before we get into the topics today, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot in these YouTube streets. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and I really appreciate you all for rocking with me so far. Anyways, let's get back to business. For the first time in a long time, LeBron is looking old, dusty, and decrepit. Since tying Kyle Korver for the most three-pointers all time, LeBron has gone 0 for 19 from three-pointer in the last 4 games. Now, this is still slightly below RJ Barrett's record of 21 missed three-pointers without a single make, but this is still pretty bad for LeBron. And this is the first time LeBron has been looking human, I would say, in a very long time. Now, LeBron is almost turning 40. He will turn 40 in 27 days, so it is about time that LeBron has his eventual come down to earth moment in the NBA. And listen, man, if it was anyone else in the Lakers team that had missed 19 straight threes from three-pointer, Lakers fans would be throwing an absolute riot and fits all over the internet trying to get them traded or trying to get them cut. If D'Lo was doing this, if D'Lo missed 19 straight threes, anyone would be trying to get them out of here. But of course, because it is LeBron, Le GM, nothing will happen. But also at the same time, you got to understand that basketball, any sport, is mostly mental. And this is probably something that LeBron James will get over eventually. He's always been a streaky shooter, so it just takes that one three-point make for him to be able to get his mental back and for him to be able to get back in the groove eventually. And just an update, this is being recorded a day later. LeBron finally hit a three-pointer and he has officially passed Kyle Korver for 6th all-time on the NBA three-point list. But overall, and especially in a game against the Timberwolves where LeBron only had 10 points, is looking like LeBron is really starting to show his age. And it may be best for the Lakers to reduce his time so that his plus minus can continue to improve, because even though LeBron is out there for long stretches, it makes more sense for him to have shorter periods on the floor where he's impacting the game more positively versus just playing long stretches or long minutes just to say he's been out there for the full game. And I think dialing back not only his minutes per game, but also the amount of games he's playing overall, especially when you're 40 years old, might be the best idea right now. Now, JJ Redick was asked by reporters whether it's realistic that LeBron play an entire 82-game regular season at this point, and JJ Redick did respond. He said something along the lines of, "I don't know if that's in the best interest of him and us if he can play all 82 games, but if he's feeling well and feeling good, he should play. And we obviously want to manage that as best as we can." Now listen, LeBron takes care of his body. Obviously you don't play for this long unless you have a crazy regimen, but at a certain point you got to step back and look at the results that you've yielded up to this point. If you look at the Lakers record, they have essentially the same record that they had through 21 games as they did last year when Darvin Ham was a coach. Right now, they have a record of 12 wins and 9 losses. They are currently 8th in the West, and they just got knocked out of the NBA Cup. And of course, LeBron has to be passive aggressive and act like he doesn't care about the cup, even though last year they were popping champagne like they won the NBA championship. But even more important than that, LeBron turns 40 years old in 27 days as of this recording, and should he really be focused on playing 82 games in a season? I mean, does that even really matter? If you are in what might be your last year and you want a shot at one last title before you walk out into the sunset, shouldn't you be more focused on making sure that every single game you play, you have impact? I mean, there's plenty of season left to go still, but at this rate, the Lakers are going to be a play-in tournament team, and let's be honest, the Lakers really don't want that. And you know why they don't want that? Because if they continue at this rate and they're so closely aligned with the Denver Nuggets, who are only a game in front of them at 8th in the Western Conference, they'll eventually probably have to face off against the Denver Nuggets in the play-in tournament. And we all know how that has fared for LeBron and the Lakers. Every single time they've gone against the Denver Nuggets in recent memory, they've got their asses handed to them and they've been sent home. For whatever reason, LeBron and the Lakers just have a mental hurdle when it comes to facing off against the Denver Nuggets. And on the flip side, the Denver Nuggets turn into some goddamn Super Saiyans when they go against the Lakers. Jamal Murray loves playing against the Lakers. I would not be surprised if Jamal Murray specifically marks down every single Lakers meeting that he has on his calendar every single year and make sure to be ready for that, because every single time he's against the Lakers, he's balling out. And we all know what Jokic is going to do. Jokic is probably going to win his 4th MVP this year, and against the Lakers, he just effortlessly looks like he just packs them up and gets them out of here every single time. At this point, it's getting pretty sad what the Denver Nuggets are doing to the Lakers every single time they meet. I mean, the Denver Nuggets are treating LeBron James and the Lakers the way LeBron James treated the Toronto Raptors back when he was on the Cavs. It's gotten to the point where Jokic needs a full-on nickname for what he's doing in Los Angeles every single time. I want to know what you guys think Nikola Jokic's nickname should be every time he faces the Lakers. Now, after an overall pretty solid start to the season, the Lakers are being pretty subpar overall. It looks like they're going to be around the 9th to 8th seed for the rest of the season, and they just dropped their game against the Miami Heat tonight, so they're falling to a record of 12-10 on the season. And listen, man, the Western Conference is extremely tight. The Lakers cannot afford to have a long stretch of losing games or a long slump, because the Nuggets are right there, the Spurs are right there, the Timberwolves are right there. Any one of these teams could get hot, and before you know it, the Lakers could drop down to 12th or 13th in the West. So I really think JJ Redick has to rethink his plan. I think they should sit LeBron a little bit more. I think they should rely more on Anthony Davis, even though he's injury prone, but they've got to do something, because whatever they're doing right now isn't working. And it's of no surprise, because when your main player, your star player, is literally about to turn 40, what do you expect to happen? It's not like LeBron is a young superstar in his Miami days or his Cleveland days where he completely take over a game. Those days are long gone, fam. So the Lakers really need to get it together. But in other Lakers news, we also have to talk about Bronny James and what's going on there. Now, for those who don't know, Bronny James is on a 2-way contract, and what this means is essentially that Bronny James will play in the G League as well as on the Lakers' actual roster. It was announced a couple weeks back that Bronny James would continue to report to the G League roster, but would return to the actual Lakers roster for home games moving forward. So, of course, expectations were very high, and a lot of people came to tune in and watch Bronny in the G League. But in just 2 games in the G League, Bronny averaged 5 points per game on 28 minutes. After his second game, it was announced by the South Bay Lakers that he would miss 8 games due to a heel contusion. Now, let me get this straight. When Bronny was on the Lakers roster, he was completely fine, and then now that he went back to the G League after 2 games and underperformed, he magically has a heel contusion and he's about to miss 8 games. I'm sorry, fam, but this is complete cap, and I think we gotta be a little bit honest with ourselves at this point. I think the Bronny experiment is over now. I mean, this guy's had enough time. I think it's pretty clear that Bronny is not NBA material, let alone G League material. And quite honestly, I think LeBron's ambitions have ruined Bronny James' actual shot at an NBA career. And this is why. LeBron wanting to be the first player to play with the Sun legitimately crushed any real chance that Bronny had at being an NBA player. Because look at the stigma attached to Bronny's name now. There's not a single person in the NBA who's not trying to be politically correct or not get on the wrong side of Bron that believes that Bronny should be on an NBA roster or a G League roster. And when you look at other players on the South Bay Lakers, such as G League standout Quincy Olivari, on the flip side, he's actually balling. This specific player that I mentioned in the G League is averaging 23 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists. This is someone that the Lakers would actually benefit from calling, but instead, Bronny's getting that spot on the Lakers roster when they could use some extra firepower from a guy like this. And this is something that Gilbert Arenas and Kwame Brown argued about on their podcast when discussing Bronny James taking up a roster spot that he honestly doesn't deserve.
In the NBA, his daddy said he's ready to play right now. While he was a freshman in college, Dad said he was ready to play. And this is so far from the truth. I play video of this kid coming off the pick and roll. He's rounding the pick and roll. And that would make sense if you trained him, because if you round the pick and roll, you're fast enough to just keep going by somebody and they can't stay in front of you. Or if you round the pick and roll and you're so fast, they would have to back up and get to the paint, which will lead for you a quick jump shot. Bronny James don't have the natural ability of Gilbert Arenas. So maybe you didn't see that he wasn't going shoulder to shoulder, that he was rounding it, allowing that defender to catch up. And maybe that's why you think I'm hating, opposed to maybe you should have watched different and not trained him to be you and trained him to be him. And so it's a disservice to all the guys that's in the G League that Bronny got the 55th pick, because all of those guys, even the number 1 pick in the G League draft, would wish he was the 55th pick. He definitely could.
But he hasn't in 3 years. It's been 3 years.
He does. If you listen, I played the interview with D-Wade. He said his son called him. He said, I don't want to hear how hard it is. If you want something bad enough, you work at it and you accomplish it. But Dwayne Wade is part owner. If he wanted his kid to get advanced up, he could have. Dwayne Wade seemed like that's the one help he gave him to say, hey, I'm your pops. This is what you want to do. I'm going to get you there, and then it's on you.
Yes.
And he took his hands off. LeBron never took his hands off.
But that's the thing. What Dwayne Wade did is, I'm going to use my power to get you here. You got to figure this shit out yourself. The same
But that's not what LeBron is doing.
Yeah, I'm getting you here. You got to figure this shit out yourself.
How is that figuring it out yourself when he don't have to travel with the team? How is that figuring it out yourself when he scores 4 to 5 points, and then now when he gets a stretch of 4 games, somehow his bone in his heel is bruised? You and I both know that takes like 2 to 3 weeks for a heel bruise. He's out indefinitely.
I completely agree with Kwame Brown. I don't care what nobody says. This is absolute nepotism at its core. And it's really sad because, number one, the NBA is already having a bad rap for how their players are being perceived as entitled spoiled brats who don't want to play any games, who don't want to play through injuries, and who don't want to be competitive. And number two, you're literally degrading the value and the authenticity of your basketball culture when you allow something like this to happen. Even Michael Jordan, who I personally consider to be the best NBA player of all time, was not able to get his son in based on pure nepotism. And of course, that's as a result of his son not being good enough as well too, but Bronny isn't good enough either. But then number three, even as a father, one of your jobs as a father is to set realistic expectation for your children, and another job is to be able to let them hit rock bottom or do the hard things on their own. What type of example are you setting for your son just to allow them to go scot-free through all the work, through all the development, and just get a spot to the NBA? It's not supposed to work like that, fam. You are supposed to put in work, go in the gym, get better, and make it there on your own. You're not setting a good example as a father by just allowing your son to be able to go there just because you want to meet some magical figure and be the first player ever to play an NBA game with your son. I don't think that's cool at all. Realistically, Bronny should have never left college. He should have stayed in college for at least 3 to 4 years, developed as much as possible, learned as much as possible in the system, and then tried to go to the G League or declare for the NBA draft. And I think what makes this even sadder is that you see a perfect example of this being done, right? You see Carmelo Anthony and his son Kion Anthony, where he just officially announced that he's going to be going to Syracuse, where he's following in his father's footsteps. He's going back to the college that Carmelo Anthony went to and the college that Carmelo Anthony won a title at when he was in the NCAA. This is how you do it. This is an example of a young kid, a young bull who put work in the gym, became a top 40 recruit, and went back to his father's college. No handouts, no gimmies, just hard work in the gym and proving himself. And if he continues this rate in the NCAA, he'll be able to be a top 20 or top 10 pick in the NBA draft next year as well. And to further emphasize his point and bring this home, we got to think about what happens to Bronny after LeBron retires, right? Because we eventually know that day is going to come, whether it be next year or the year after next year. Eventually, LeBron's old ass is going to have to hang it up. And then what for Bronny? So again, I think LeBron has done a huge disservice for his son. I think it's going to be a huge mistake. I think if you were going to let him come to the NBA and use your nepotism or whatever to be able to get him in, at the very least, you should have let the Phoenix Suns draft him. I think even if Bron pulls some strings to be able to get Bronny on an NBA roster, the stigma would be far less if he was able to go on a different team, prove himself from the ground up, make the roster, and then play or eventually get sent to the G League. At least it would have been seen as, okay, this guy's got here from his father, but at least he's trying to put the work in on his own. But Bronny being under his father's coverings on the Lakers and us knowing how the GM works, we know that this is all LeBron's doing. In a weird way, I kind of feel a little bit sorry for Bronny because of the situation and because of everything that we know is going to happen. Actually, let me take that back. I don't feel sorry for this guy at all. You're getting to play in the NBA when you don't deserve it. You're getting paid millions of dollars on top of that to do so. Nah, you'll be all right, kid. Now, in our next story in the docket, we gotta talk about Zion Williamson and his NBA career. This is another season and another year where Zion's overweight ass isn't playing due to injury. And man, I might sound like a broken record, man. When I first got on this platform, I was talking about Zion and his injuries and his lack of play, lack of self-control. And almost a year later, man, nothing has changed at all. Shams Charania went on the Pat McAfee show yesterday to give an update on Zion Williamson's injury, and he's quoted as saying, Zion Williamson has been out for about a month and he's not even close to coming back. Wow. At this point, it just seems like straight up deja vu. I don't think Zion Williamson wants to be in New Orleans at all. I'm going to be quite honest. I think in Zion Williamson's dream perfect world, he would have been drafted #1 overall to the New York Knicks. He would have been in the Big Apple, New York City, but instead he landed in New Orleans. And don't get me wrong, we all agree that Zion Williamson's heavy ass is a menace when he's out there on that court. When Zion Williamson is fully healthy, he's an absolute animal on the boards, on the net, everywhere on that court. He is a beast. But this guy's always injured. They say the best ability is availability, and Zion Williamson has not been available for the majority of his career. And even this season, he's only played 6 games of the entire NBA season. And at this point, most teams are 21, 22, 23 games into the season. And if I'm the Pelicans organization, you pretty much got to write this entire season off at this point, because not only is Zion Williamson injured, but CJ McCollum is injured. Jordan Hawkins, Jose Alvarado is also injured too. There's at least 3 players getting paid $30+ million that are injured currently on this Pelicans roster. And the Pelicans issues aren't just ending there. It's looking like Brandon Ingram wants out as well too. There's been rumors circulating that the Los Angeles Lakers are considering a blockbuster trade for Brandon Ingram. And in addition to this, where there's smoke, there's fire. Brandon Ingram just signed with Clutch Sports. And if you guys don't know about Clutch Sports, the CEO of Clutch Sports is LeBron James' right-hand man, Rich Paul. LeBron is signed to Clutch Sports, Anthony Davis is signed to Clutch Sports, Bronny James is signed to Clutch Sports, and the list goes on. There's a bunch of other players that are signed to Clutch as well too, that play in the NBA, NFL, etc. But the point being that if Brandon Ingram has signed to Clutch Sports, he definitely wants some change. Either he's looking for a new team, a new bag, or a new team and a new bag. He definitely wants that, because Clutch Sports is known for getting their players paid. And it was also noted through the grapevine that Brandon Ingram would like to go to a team that could be a potential contender for winning a championship this year as well. I'm not entirely sure why he would consider a return to the Lakers if he wants to win a championship. They're not winning a chip this year, it's pretty clear. But hey, we'll continue to follow this story and see what happens with the Brandon Ingram Pelicans situation. And overall, we're gonna have a Pelicans watch as well. I want to see what happens overall. I want to see what they're gonna do with Zion Williamson once his contract eventually expires. Are they gonna look to trade him to try to get something for him so that he doesn't just walk for free? Because Zion Williamson's current contract ends in the year 2028, and if he continues to be injured at this rate, the Pelicans are gonna have to do something with him, man. They're gonna have to look to find a trade or something. But honestly, at this point, with all these injuries, with all the issues with Zion Williamson up until this point, what would you even be able to trade Zion for, and which team would take that contract? I want to know what you guys think. Sound off below. Do you think Brandon Ingram is going to ask for a trade? Do you think he's going to reunite with the Lakers again? He was there when he was a rookie. And do you think Zion is going to get traded eventually? Do you think he's going to stay with the Pelicans? Do you think he's going to re-sign? I want to hear your thoughts below. Next up, we got to talk about this new NBA All-Star Game format. I'm not gonna lie, this format is weird as hell. I'm not really sure whose idea this was. I understand the NBA is trying to do everything they can, try every single idea to try to get the NBA All-Star Game and the NBA in general back to a place where it used to be. But I don't know how I feel about this NBA All-Star Game format. Now, according to Shams Charania, the new NBA All-Star Game will have a tournament-style format. It'll feature 3 All-Star teams, and it'll have 8 players each on the roster, and there will be a 4th team. And the 4th team will be the winner of the Rising Stars Challenge. The first 2 games will be a semifinals, and they'll have to reach a target score of 40 points to be able to win that game. And then the 2 winners will advance to the finals, and they'll have a target score of 25 points. So this is a new implementation that Adam Silver wanted to put in, especially after the last All-Star Game last year was a big disappointment to everybody. And they actually consulted Stephen Curry from the Golden State Warriors and had direct conversations with him about changing the format. And I guess this is part of Stephen Curry's brainchild, to be able to put their best foot forward and try to see what they can do with the All-Star Game moving forward. And again, my opinion, I don't think this is going to save the NBA. I don't think the issue is the format of the game. I think the issue is a lack of effort coming from the players, just the NBA culture in general. You putting all these bells and whistles in throwing paint at a canvas trying to see what sticks is not really going to work, because the underlying issue of the NBA player culture is not being addressed. So there's nothing really you can do. But again, that's just my opinion. I'm still open to seeing whether this will work or not. I'll be tuning into the All-Star game just to be able to see how this is going to work out and what it's going to look like. Again, I don't fault the NBA and Adam Silver for trying new things, but it seems like they've been trying a new thing almost every single year and nothing's been sticking. So I want to know what you guys think. What do you think of this new NBA All-Star game format? Do you think it's going to work? Do you think the fact that they consulted Stephen Curry is going to add to the excitement? Do you think this is something to be excited about in general? We've had a couple of people sound off on this new change as well too. We've had Stephen A. Smith talk about the new All-Star game format. This is what he said about it.
I hate it. I have no use for it. It means absolutely positively nothing to me. Matter of fact, I don't even want to go. I'm going to call it what it is. It's straight bullshit. It really is. Let me tell y'all something, okay? Nobody should expect the players on All-Star Sunday to play as hard as they play during the regular season or the playoffs. I understand that. But you trying to tell me you can't play as hard as you play in the summertime when you're working out to get yourself in shape? You can't do that? We've seen plenty of footages of NBA players working out in the off season, practicing in gyms, going up against one another. They play harder than what we see on Sundays for All-Star Weekend. How come you can't do that for the All-Star game?
And I'm a little bit inclined to agree with Stephen A. Smith, man. Listen, it goes back to what I was saying before. Unless you change the players' attitude towards the All-Star game, unless you get them to put in effort like they used to put in the early 2000s, all these players really wanted to go at each other. It was a real thing to want to win MVP at that game. If you look at how Kobe went off against each other, Jordan went off, like players like Allen Iverson, all these guys wanted to go in there and prove that they were the best player on the court. It wasn't about all these three balls or all this other stuff. Obviously, the All-Star game has always had a sort of over-the-top flair with it as well, but dudes really wanted to go in there and drop 40 to prove that they were the best player on that court. But I don't know what's happened since then, man. It just seems like the NBA spirit, I don't know whether it's been money, whether it's been sponsorships, the fact that the players are too entitled, the fact that the players are getting too much money too early, they don't have to work hard enough for it, but it's just not the same that it used to be. And everybody can feel this. Everybody feels a change in the NBA product. It's just not where it was supposed to be at this point. And with all these players getting all this money, hundreds of millions of dollars, you would expect that you get hundreds of millions of dollars worth of effort, but it's just not the case. But you guys sign off below. I want to hear your thoughts on the new NBA All-Star game format and whether you like it or whether you hate it. Sign off below. And speaking of the devil, next up, we got to talk about Stephen A. Smith signing a 6-year, $125 million contract extension with ESPN. Now, when I first saw this number, I had to double take. I literally thought, is this an NBA contract? This dude is literally getting paid more than some NBA players. A 6-year, $120 million contract. He's getting paid over $20 million per year with this. This is kind of ridiculous, man. And I know a lot of people were super mad when they saw this, man. Even on Facebook, there's a bunch of people going crazy. Instagram, bunch of people going crazy. TikTok, bunch of people going crazy because Stephen A. Smith, all he does is talk shit. You get $125 million for that. But instead of hating, I think this is an opportunity for everybody to learn that, listen, man, it's not about talent sometimes. Sometimes it's just about hard work, consistency, and being in the right place at the right time. This should be inspiration for everybody to be like, listen, man, if I just talk shit about NBA and NFL players, I can make $125 million too. And that should be inspiration to everybody, young, old, and everything in between out there. And I know a lot of people like to hate on Stephen A. Smith. I know a lot of people love him. Some people hate him. Currently, I'm in between. I really don't watch ESPN like that, so I don't really care. I think some of his takes are good, some of his takes are bad. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. But the one thing you can't say about this guy is that he doesn't work his ass off, man. I've seen this guy when I used to watch ESPN. He was on damn near like 16 shows every single day. I'm like, when do you even find time to sleep, my guy? Do you sleep at all? So one thing you can't take away from Stephen A. Smith is his work ethic and the fact that ESPN is willing to give him a big bag like this. If they're giving him $125 million, here's a business lesson. That means they're making way more than $125 million off of him. So that's one thing you guys got to see. You see the $125 million number that's attached to this contract. You need to know that if they're paying you that much, that means they know they can make even more off of you. So, hey man, Disney's always going to get to that bag, and he must be bringing them a lot of money in for sponsorships, deals, and through their viewership to be able to give him a contract like this. But shout out to Stephen A. Smith, man. I'm never a hater. I'm never going to hate on anybody getting their money, especially a young black man. Actually, hold up. He's not young at all. This dude's like almost 60 years old, but shout out to him getting his bag, man. I can't be mad at that. Now, next, we got to talk about Russell Westbrook, man. We got to give a shout out to Russell Westbrook to becoming the first player in NBA history to record 200 triple doubles. That is absolutely insane. And I was looking at something on ESPN. They were comparing the amount of triple doubles Russell Westbrook has gotten since the 2008-2009 season to actual teams. So they had the Boston Celtics on there who had 32 triple doubles in 10 years, the Golden State Warriors with 35, the Houston Rockets with 42, the Cleveland Cavaliers with 44, and Russell Westbrook since that same time has had 100 triple doubles. This guy has had more triple doubles than these entire franchises in 10 years. That is mind-boggling. When Russell Westbrook was going on this triple-double spree back in the 2016 to 2018 season, even though he was going crazy, I never thought he would catch up with Oscar Robertson because he had 181 triple-doubles. There's no way he could beat that, right? But not only did he eclipse that amount, but now he's at 200. It's absolutely insane. I don't think, in my opinion, we're going to ever see anything like this ever again in the NBA. So we got to give Brody his flowers while he's still here, man. I really hope he wins a chip before his career ends, because 200 triple doubles is nice, but I'm sure he wants to go out with an actual title, and maybe he has a good shot of it now that he's on the Denver Nuggets. So shout out to Russell Westbrook again. 200 triple doubles, that's absolutely insanity. Now for our final story on the docket, we got to talk about James Harden. James Harden was recently on the Earn Your Leisure podcast, and he asked him about his time on the Oklahoma City Thunder and him eventually leaving to go to the Houston Rockets. Now in this interview, he actually revealed that the breakup was caused over $4 million. And when you look back at the NBA salaries today, $4 million is essentially a drop in the hat. You kind of think about what it would have been if James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and KD all stayed together on the OKC team. What would have happened? He talks about it a little bit here in this clip.
KC, when they have you, Kevin,
Russ,
Serge, and Russ, young guys, if we stay together, this league is ours.
It was only for like $4 million too.
This is what I'm saying. I understand
they
that.
Broke it up for $4 million. It was only $4 million.
You wanted something and they gave it to Serge.
Exactly.
Which obviously it didn't play out well.
$4 million.
But if we stay together,
how good could that team have
this
been?
Is you take over the league.
My rookie year, it was the A seed. We played the Lakers. That was the number 1 seed.
Scared them
for sure.
Scared them.
We had OKC cracking. They won the championship, Lakers.
Yep.
My second year, we went in Western Conference Finals against Dallas.
They won the championship.
My third year, we in the finals against the Heat. That was Bron's first championship. They won the championship. That summer, we go to the Olympics. We win a gold medal. My fourth year is on. Summertime traded. Like a couple days before the first game.
So hold up. So how good do you think that team, in the history of hypothetically, y'all would have stayed together?
2 chips at least, at the minimum.
At least 2 chips.
Over $4 million.
You think you would have?
Now James Harden thinks that the Oklahoma City Thunder would have won at least 2 chips if they kept them all together. But to be honest, I gotta disagree, man. I don't know if this would have happened at all. I mean, if you had James Harden turn into the player that he was, or eventually turned into, he eventually would have had to come off the bench. He wouldn't have been a 6th man anymore. And this probably would have had issues boil up between Russell Westbrook, KD, and James Harden, between who's going to be the number 2 after KD. So eventually somebody would have to leave. But I would say if they did keep that core for time, then it would have been interesting to see the battles between OKC and Golden State. This could have been one of the most intense and one of the most watched rivalries in NBA history and Western Conference history if they would have kept this unit together. And we'd have to ask the question, would the Golden State Warriors be as dominant as they are if they had to face OKC in the Western Conference Finals potentially every single year? Maybe the Golden State Warriors don't eventually get to as many finals as they do if the OKC is right there with them battling for supremacy in the Western Conference. But I know one thing is for damn sure, is that if Harden stays, I don't think Kevin Durant ends up going to the Golden State Warriors. I think a large part of why Kevin Durant ended up leaving is just because he was just straight up frustrated playing with Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook, man, he would make some boneheaded, low IQ plays, and there's plenty of plays where Kevin Durant was calling for the ball where he's wide open, and Russell Westbrook would just not give him that rock, man. So I think over time, he just built up resentment, and eventually he had to leave. Now, I still think it's a bitch move going to the Golden State Warriors the way he did, but I don't think it happens if Harden becomes a number 2 instead of Russell Westbrook. I think maybe Russell Westbrook would eventually got traded. And if things didn't work out with James Harden and with Kevin Durant, maybe eventually they both get traded somewhere else. But I don't think they leave for Golden State Warriors. I don't think Harden leaves for Golden State Warriors. I don't think Kevin Durant eventually leaves for Golden State Warriors. But again, that's just my opinion. I don't think they would have won 2 chips. I think maybe they probably would have been able to sneak 1 in there just based off talent purely alone. They also had Serge Ibaka on that team as well too. Serge Ibaka was a beast on the boards. So I think they probably could have snuck 1 title in there, but I don't think they would have won 2. I'll be honest, I don't think so. I think eventually their egos would have clashed, and eventually somebody would want to take that number 1 spot, and you can't have 3 people gunning for that number 1 spot. Eventually they would have all had to leave or go somewhere else. Anyway, that's everything we have on the docket today. If you listened all the way through, I really appreciate you for rocking with me. This is Keep It Basketball, and we'll be back again next week to cover the latest topics in the NBA. But before we go, I want to know what you guys think. Do you think that if James Harden ended up staying with OKC, they would have won at least 2 chips like he said? And do you think that the Golden State Warriors end up winning as much as they do if this unit stays together? I want to know what you guys think. Sign off below in the comments. Anyways, don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video, turn on post notifications. We'll be back next week with more news, and I'm out.